Hey everyone, and welcome back. Now today we're going to be talking about a rather interesting topic, and it's going to start with answering the question, is BlackRock going to put our house on chain? Kind of an interesting question, and I would at least like to know if BlackRock's going to put my house on chain. That's what we're going to talk about today. But seriously, we're actually going to be talking about real world assets and how they work on chain. So as some of you may have heard before, there's been a pretty big push by BlackRock specifically, along with various other financial as well as governmental institutions, to start tokenizing assets. This is kind of, I think, what a lot of the larger institutions see as kind of the like gold rush of kind of this upcoming maybe decade, maybe a little bit longer. But tokenizing assets really does present quite the opportunity for a lot of these institutions. I think it provides the opportunity to clear out or at least revolutionize decades, centuries even, of very archaic and laborious processes for these illiquid assets that currently are kept on these bank balance sheets that can't really be done anything else with because they're these illiquid assets. So let's just go on ahead and dive right in. So starting out, I wanted to bring us to a CHAINLINK blog that essentially explains real world assets, or RWAs for short. In crypto, if you're familiar with this concept, I'm sure you've heard that it referred to as RWAs. Everything kind of further on in this video we'll just refer to as RWAs. But ultimately, RWAs is this massive field that really encompasses a lot of things from real estate. So the intro was not a bait. Real estate is something that can be tokenized and put on chain. I think personally, we'll go into this a little bit later, but I think personally that's actually one of the low-hanging fruits that we could discuss when talking about RWAs. But ultimately, RWAs is a massive opportunity, and as we can see here, with a potential market size in the hundreds of trillions of dollars. Now, some of you might be thinking, oh man, that's a lot of money. Where's it all coming from, right? Well, I mean, it's coming from a lot of places. Some places we'd be talking about would be, real estate, both residential and commercial. There's a lot of assets that are kept on banks' books that are valued essentially as illiquid assets. Now, this would be, private interest in non-publicly traded companies. This could be private notes. This could be, there's a whole bunch of different derivative instruments that might be some fairly niche derivative instruments. Mortgage-backed securities potentially, if they're not packaged up and sold to all of us retail investors. Call back to 2009 there. There's a lot of these types of assets that do sit on banks' books, and even if it's not to be publicly marketable or marketed, having them tokenized would at least make it a lot easier for institutions to trade between themselves. So we've got a couple news articles to go over covering this, but before we get into that, if you do find the information in my channel useful, please do go ahead, like and subscribe. I'm trying to reach 100 subscribers by the end of September. It looks like we might be getting there, so I've kind of moved that goal up now. I'd like to try and do that by the end of the month. So, if you do find the information that I provide valuable, please do help me out. It does very much help me out in terms of the YouTube algorithm, as well as getting more people to, look at the content and hopefully learn about some stuff that we're all learning about today. So moving on, let's look at this article from Forbes, which discusses BlackRock's $10 trillion tokenization vision. So this is kind of the first step that they want to take, right? But they want to do, it's essentially the future of real world assets. And so what we can see if we scroll down here, so right here, this little paragraph, we can see kind of what they're talking about. So RWA tokenization converts the rights of diverse assets from bonds and equity to real estate and cultural assets into blockchain-based digital tokens. This innovation promises enhanced liquidity, evidence of ownership, and transparency aimed at democratizing traditionally inaccessible investment avenues. This is something that, obviously I think would be a public good more than anything else, but I also do think it would be, an efficiency. Now, one thing that we can always trust is that if big banks have a way to make a buck, they're going to be doing it, right? Now, the way that I'm looking at this, as far as the tokenization of RWAs, if these banks can get more crap to package up and sell to us retail investors, why would they not, right? Obviously, there's the efficiency side of, not having to essentially keep the books up, but like interbank type stuff. But also, if they can package this stuff up and sell it to us, we know they're going to do it. So that's one thing I think we can always very, very confidently count on. So, this is something that, obviously it's on BlackRock's radar. I think there's a lot of other financial institutions that are kind of leaning into this as well, just because it's a massively untapped market. And the reason we saw in the previous article, it was a Chainlink blog, is because Chainlink is kind of working hard to kind of position themselves to be kind of the I guess the on-ramp from kind of, non-tokenization RWAs to like tokenization of RWAs. We'll see if that happens. We'll actually get into kind of a market cap breakdown here at the last piece of information we're going to go over. But before that, we're going to look at a different article. And this article discusses BlackRock, and essentially they're, BlackRock again, and they're entering the asset tokenization race, and they've already done it. They're going to have a new fund on the Ethereum network. Now, the thing that's kind of interesting about this is what we can see here is they're starting this fund, and this asset fund is actually going to pay out yield through the Ethereum network, which I think is really cool, because this is something that essentially kind of already happens right now, right? But from working from an internal like bank operations perspective, it can be kind of laborious in terms of, you've got to keep track of, the cap tables, you got to keep track of the distributions, you got to do the reporting, you got to do all this type of stuff. Well, if you tokenize these assets and put them on chain, a lot of this stuff is done, right? And especially through using smart contracts, if you want to make a distribution to investors at a certain point, well, great. Just like click the button and send it out to all these people, and it's going to go to their wallets, right? Like this is a massive efficiency gain for a lot of banks and financial institutions based on the way that they used to do this. So this is something that I'm quite interested to see how it develops. And I think it could, like when we talk about some of these ridiculous crypto valuations, I 100% believe that like this is going to be kind of how we get there. I mean, we need a lot of this, money kind of flowing through the crypto ecosystem to bring the liquidity that will, I think, impact a lot of these price movements the way that we're wanting to see. So wrapping up, the last piece of information I want to go over was RWA tokens. Now, before we go into this is, the standard disclaimer. This is not investment advice. This is not, legal, tax, accounting, any sort of advice you could possibly imagine. This is literally just a list of RWA tokens. I do own some of these. I'm not going to tell you which ones I own because I don't want you to think I'm trying to like pump my bags or anything. I really don't care. This is something where, I've obviously done my research. I've invested in certain things that I find value in, and I might be right, I might be wrong, I don't know. But ultimately, this is just a holistic list of RWA tokens as they kind of classify themselves based on market cap. So simple as that. This is purely just a list to kind of take a look through, and then essentially gives you a starting place to like do some further research. If you're like, after this video, you're like, oh wow, RWAs are actually really cool, and I also believe that this could be a $10 trillion industry. Where should I start? This is where you would start. So obviously, we saw the CHAINLINK article initially. They are kind of the biggest project that claims to be an RWA token. I don't really know exactly. I think CHAINLINK's connection to RWAs is a little confusing to me. I understand their like pitch and everything they're trying to do, but CHAINLINK's tried to do a lot of things. They've been around for a while, and so I think they're just kind of trying to ride the wave and go with the narratives, which, I mean, more power to them. I'm not like throwing shade for that, but it's one of those things where I'm not exactly sure I see where that's going. Maker is essentially like a DeFi one. ONDO's one that is, there's been a lot of news around ONDO and BlackRock as far as tokenization of real estate specifically. Goldfinch is one that's kind of caught some steam lately. TokenFi is another one. We've got PROPY, that's another property one. PropChain, also another property one. If we scroll down here, we've got some of these, the DEXTF, this is like decentralized ETF. We've got some other decentralized ETFs down here. Essentially, here's another real estate one. There's a lot of, obviously you can see property is a hot commodity. And one of the reasons I'll actually explain, like I alluded to earlier in the video, I think that one of the probably lowest hanging fruits we could find as far as RWAs are concerned is title insurance, right? If I'm not exactly sure how things work internationally, but if you're an American, and you've purchased a house, you're definitely familiar with title insurance. It's usually a pretty big chunk of your closing costs, because you have to essentially ensure that the title is correct and nobody's stolen the land and then sold it to you, and all this different types of fun stuff. So, but what could be really interesting in the future is if we tokenize real estate and put it on chain, you essentially like either massively reduce or completely eliminate the need for title insurance, because it's on chain. Like, there's no real way to fake it or co-opt like a record if you've got the private key that like validates your transaction. Like, that's just what it is, right? So that's something that I think would be kind of like a really easy, like low-hanging fruit. Same thing with property, timeshares. If you tokenize your timeshare, you now essentially have more liquidity, because you could go to some timeshare app and then like sell your like timeshare token in whatever you happen to own. So there's a lot of really interesting ideas like that within real estate specifically. I know there's a lot more with like more complex financial instruments. I just happen to know, a little bit more about the real estate market specifically. So those are the ones that I kind of tune into a little bit more. But I mean, there's a ton, as I'm hoping you can start to see, there's a ton of opportunities within RWAs. So ultimately, if you found this video useful and informational, please do like and subscribe. It really does help me out. Like I said earlier in the video, I am trying to reach 100 subscribers. So, if you did enjoy, what you saw, please do subscribe. It does really help me out a lot and helps the channel continue to grow. So anyway, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next video.